Hi everyone, my name is Iris Ramirez, and alongside my group members Monique, Roseanne, Evelyn, and Sashanik, we developed a nonprofit titled the GRIT Program, which stands for Gang Responsive Intervention and Trauma Informed Care. Our program is designed to support at-risk youth and gang-impacted communities through a transdisciplinary trauma-informed approach that addresses both individuals and systemic factors influencing youth development. Through this presentation, we will outline the problem, the research that informs our approach, and how our program aims to provide more coordinated, accessible, and effective support for vulnerable youth. At the core of this issue, youth and gang impacted communities are experiencing chronic exposure to violence, instability, and structural disadvantage, which significantly increases the risk for adverse childhood experiences and gang involvement. As briefly shown through our program's logo, which represents strength and intervention, the need for targeted support is critical. These challenges are not simply the result of individual choices, but rather reflect broader systemic inequities, including limited access to mental health services, mentorship, and safe environments. Despite the presence of community-based programs, many services remain fragmented, underfunded, and difficult to access, preventing youth from receiving consistent and effective support. As a result, ongoing trauma exposure continues to impair emotional regulation, decision making, and long term developmental outcomes, reinforcing cycles of vulnerability and gang involvement. This highlights a critical gap in coordinated trauma informed systems designed to effectively support at risk youth.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Evelyn Zuniga. The literature shows that gang involvement among youth is not simply about individual decision making, but is deeply influenced by environmental and structural factors. Youth growing up in communities impacted by violence, poverty, and instability often experience chronic stress and trauma, which disrupts healthy development. This trauma can lead to emotional dysregulation, impairment judgment, and increased engagement in high risk behaviors. For many youth, gangs provide a sense of protection, belonging, and identity that may be missing elsewhere, making gang involvement a response to unmet needs. However, this involvement is also associated with significant negative outcomes, including mental health challenges and academic disengagement. At the same time, protective factors such as mentorship, school engagement, and community support can reduce risk and promote resilience. Despite this, many youth face barriers to accessing services, including stigma, limited availability, and lack of coordination across systems. Overall, the literature emphasizes the need for an integrated trauma-informed approach that address both individual experiences and broader systemic factors.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roseanne Rodriguez, and I'm going to go over slide 4 and 5 with you today. So, slide 4 here is representing the ethical community engagement practice. And this slide highlights the importance of ethical and community based engagement when working with at risk youth in gang impacted communities. So, this slide really highlights that it is essential that all interventions are truly grounded in trauma informed care, right? And so, what this does is it really ensures that services promote safety, trust, and empowerment for the youth that are being served. This ethical practice also requires maintaining confidentiality, of course, obtaining informed consent, and respecting the autonomy and dignity of each individual. So, these principles are critical when working with vulnerable populations who may already have experienced systematic harm or mistrust towards institutions. In addition, we want to highlight culture responsive and community based approaches are absolutely necessary to effectively engage youth within their environments. And this includes recognizing the impact of systemic inequities such as poverty, limited access to resources, and social marginalization. Collaboration across disciplines such as social work, the field of education, and behavioral health is also key in addressing the complex needs of this particular population. And we believe that by integrating services, we can create more accessible, equitable, and non-stigmatizing systems of care, which ultimately, utilizing this approach prioritizes their voice, right, and their empowerment, ensuring that interventions are not only ethical, but also meaningful and responsive to their own personal lived experiences. Through our community asset mapping process, we developed a visual representation of how resources are distributed across San Diego County. The areas highlighted in pink represent communities with a higher concentration of identified needs, particularly in those impacted by limited access to supportive services and increased vulnerability among at-risk youth. The mapping illustrates a noticeable clustering of resources in more central and urban regions, while other areas, particularly in the southeast portion of San Diego County, demonstrate gaps in service availability. And from this, we can see that this uneven distribution actually suggests that although resources do exist, they are not equitably accessible to all populations. We also see structural barriers such as transportation limitations, financial constraints, and lack of awareness, which further restricts access to the existing services within these high-need areas. But overall, this highlights the absolute critical importance of strategically expanding services, strengthening our outreach efforts, and improving resource accessibility in underserved communities to effectively address disparities and support positive outcomes.
For the program description logic model, this program was developed in direct response to the service gaps identified through our community asset mapping, particularly in communities experiencing high levels of need and limited access to supportive resources. It is designed to address the complex and multi-layered risk factors that contribute to youth involvement in gang activity, including exposure to violence, instability, and systemic barriers. The program is grounded in trauma-informed care and an ecological systems perspective, recognizing that youth outcomes are shaped not only by individual experiences, but also by their environments, relationships, and broader social systems. As a result, the approach emphasizes prevention, early intervention, and coordinated service delivery across multiple sectors. The logic model presented here visually outlines how the program operates. It begins with key inputs such as multidisciplinary collaboration, community partnerships, and access to resources. These inputs support a range of structured activities including outreach, engagement, workshops, and intervention services aimed at supporting both youth and the professionals who work with them. From these activities, the program is expected to increase access to services, strengthen collaboration across systems, and enhance community capacity to respond effectively to at-risk youth. Ultimately, the model demonstrates a progression toward long-term outcomes, including reduced gang involvement, improved mental health and well-being, and stronger, more supportive community networks. For the proposed evaluation methods, they're designed to comprehensively assess both the effectiveness of the program and its impact on participants. Stakeholder engagement plays a central role in this process, involving youth, families, social workers, educators, and community partners to ensure that multiple perspectives are incorporated. The evaluation is guided by key questions that examine whether the program improves trauma-informed practices, increases participants' knowledge and confidence, and enhances collaboration across systems. It also explores how stakeholders perceive the program's overall usefulness and real-world impact. A mixed method design will be used, combining quantitative and qualitative approaches to capture both measurable outcomes and participant experiences. Data collection will include pre- and post surveys, as well as interviews and focus groups to provide a deeper insight into program effectiveness. All procedures will follow ethical standards, including informed consent, confidentiality, and voluntary participation. The primary evaluation instrument consists of structured surveys using Likert scale measures to assess changes in knowledge, attitudes, and skills over time. This allows for clear comparison between pre and post program outcomes, providing measurable evidence of program impact.
Through our asset mapping and needs assessment, we identify a clear imbalance in resources distribution. Practically in underserved areas such as Southeast San Diego, where high levels need to exist alongside limited access to supportive services. These findings emphasize the importance of trauma-informed cross-system collaboration, as well as the need for community-based interventions that are both accessible and responsive to the realities youth face. Social workers may play a key role in bridging these gaps, advocating for resources and ensuring that services are delivered in an equitable and efficient manner. In terms of lessons learned, this project highlighted how structural barriers, including transportation, finances, and lack of awareness, continue to impact services utilization even when resources are available. Moving forward, efforts should focus on Spanish services and underserving areas, strengthening collaboration across agencies, and implementing ongoing evaluations to assess long-term outcomes and improve program effectiveness. This final slide represents the scholarly foundation of our work, grounded in evidence, theory, and base practices, with all references presented in APA format. This project was developed through full and equal collaboration. Each group member contributed intentionally and righteously to the research, analysis, and design of this proposal, reflecting a collective commitment to advancing trauma-informed, equitable interventions for at-risk youth and gang-impacted communities. This work does not just represent an academic requirement, but a deliberate effort to address real gaps in systems of care and move towards meaningful, sustainable change. Thank you.